And so we're super excited to welcome to Let's Get to the author of The Arena. He's a Texas State champion, a national champion, and American League champion, Calvin Schiraldi. I'm going to call you Coach because that's how I know you. How you doing, Coach?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing well. We're what, sitting here. Pitchers and catchers are going, so it's almost the best time of the year.
You got that right.
So it's funny because your book deals with a lot of themes. A lot of it is about sort of swallowing fear or moments and kind of pushing ahead anyway. And I'm going to begin the question with, as a professional screenwriter, we always joke that there's nothing scarier than a blank page. So what prompted the book, and how did you feel like, how did the getting starting process go?
David and I were literally driving to hunting camp, and he's been trying for years to get me to do the book. We used to tell stories on a coach's retreat up on a porch, and I would tell stories, and he was just fascinated by it. He goes, "You need to write a book." So like for 20 years, he was trying to get me to write this book. And then over that time, I was a drunk, just put it bluntly, and my frame of mind was never there to want to put that stuff on me to go back and rehash stuff like that. So I just kept saying no and no and no, and then finally, he on the last trip down, he said, "I'm gonna ask you one more time," and I've been sober for probably 9-10 months. I guess. And I thought about it. He told me what the premise would be, and I said, "Okay, let's try it and see what we come up with." And he wrote the first chapter, and I was like, "Okay, we'll continue this," and it just kind of kept going from there.
One of the things I appreciate about it too, you use the word bluntly. The book is blunt. The book pulls no punches. I love the fact that it's so direct. There's not a lot of reading between the lines and what you're trying to say. I mean, how much of that is just your personality coming through the page and wanting to make sure that your intent was clear?
When I started the book, I said I was going to be completely honest. That's one of the things we talk about in meetings and stuff, is honesty. And I said, I'm just going to throw it all out there. And I did. And that was, I'm getting goosebumps now thinking about it, because that was the best personal therapy that I've ever had. Just doing this book made my life a lot better. It made me realize some things about my life that I didn't know at the time. I didn't know back then, and I didn't appreciate any of it. There was always something better, always something da 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 da. And now I can sit back after writing this and appreciate the things that I was able to do, that God blessed me with the abilities to do, and it's been awesome since.
Did you know that would be the result going in? I mean, the part of you had to realize it might be a little cathartic.
I had no clue that was going to happen, and it was scary. I was scared to death. But then, each chapter, it just got easier and easier, going back to remembering things that I really had no clue that I was remembering.
Mm-hmm.
And putting it on paper and seeing it again is like, okay, that wasn't so bad. So now we just roll with it. And then the last couple chapters are the ones, well, actually the 86 part was pretty tough, but going back, because I never really sat through and watched those games. And we did that in writing the book, and so that allowed me to appreciate, being in the World Series. I never really appreciated it up until this point. I was thinking about this today, is, people never, like Ernie Banks would have given his right arm to be in a World Series. Never got to play in a World Series. And I didn't appreciate it at the time until the book came out, until we started writing the book.
You deal with 86 with so much honesty that I couldn't help but really admire you for it. You are the kind of guy whose reputation precedes you, and we'll get a little bit to that as far as you and your former players. But You break it down and you say your entire life changed on one pitch. How do you feel about it now versus then? And I want to get into talk about the media part, because that part really struck me.
Um, I always took the blame myself, and I still take the blame. I mean, I did not get the job done with one pitch. The 0-2 pitch to Ray Knight, that was a chance to close out the World Series. I didn't get the job done. But for me, I had put all the blame on myself, and instead of also realizing the fact that, Ray did a hell of a job with that. I made a mistake, and he made me pay for it. I never thought of it that way. I never thought about their abilities to come back. The perception is that we failed, and instead of, what about the fact that the Mets came back and they were a pretty good team?
Yeah.
I mean, they had 112 wins or whatever it was. Not given that, there was no credit given to them. It was the fact that we screwed up, or that I screwed up, and not the fact that they were a good enough team to be able to come back and make us pay for some mistakes.
You one of the things that I think struck me the most, what I would never have occurred of, and I think it's because I'm so used to living in what we live in as a culture now, which is a very zero-sum game. But the initial reaction from the fans of Boston, the fact that they threw you guys a parade, that they did appreciate the fact that you guys went out there and represented them in the World Series. Were you shocked at that too? I know you talked a little bit about it in the book, of seeing the turnout and the response.
That was surprisingly awesome. But we didn't really know that was going to happen. With the way the media presents things, especially around that, it was surprising, and it was totally awesome. There were 500,000 people there, and that was really cool. And they just appreciated. The fans appreciated our efforts. I mean, we were picked to finish fourth, I think, in the East. Not even a chance, and they just appreciated. They appreciated the ALCS. They appreciated all the playoffs, because ESPN has done the deal where it's the number one playoffs of all times, and rightfully so, because both the ALCS, the NLCS, and the World Series were phenomenal events. And it was just an appreciation by the fans of what that season was like.
Then you talk about the media, and I think this is kind of where I wanted to dig into this a little bit, because I thought you talk about how it's sort of devolving culture, the devolution. I think you said something to the effect of the devolution of the sports world. How soon did you recognize that the media was going to change the narrative, and therefore that would change the reaction that you would get as a result of that effort? And then also, I'm assuming you don't see it getting any better now that we all have social media. Is it getting worse?
It's getting a lot worse. I don't remember when it was, because it evolved over a period of time, and I really didn't really understand it. I think I just kind of fed off of it, that because of my state of mind, and the fact that I was an alcoholic and all that stuff. So that just made things worse. Until we wrote the book, I let the media define who I was.
Mm-hmm.
I let other people define, and I can go back to certain instances. And it's not, I mean, when I say the media, it's not the entire media. It's certain people in the media who think that they are, they decide what goes on, and without knowing, without ever having played the game, without ever having been a part of it, something like that. They want a goat. They don't want a hero. They want a goat. They want it to blame things on somebody, instead of like the way the 86 went was the Red Sox choked,
Mm-hmm.
the Mets didn't win. That was the take on it, and it's wrong. I mean, because of the way those games were played, it's just it's a part of the game. Somebody's going to win, somebody's going to lose. Somebody's good enough. You look at Patrick Mahomes a couple of years ago. He wins the Super Bowl, and the next year he's the GOAT in the Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's and now he's a hero again. So it's fickle, and I know it's got to be done. And my favorite quote is Charlie Strong: "Social media is the downfall of society."
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
with everybody with phones, there's so much more out there. An individual can do things. When you got players videoing coaches in a halftime meeting type stuff, that's just ridiculous. And that never happened back then.
Yeah.
Because that was a long time ago. We didn't have the cell phones, but now it's so much more amplified with social media, and you have these social media people that want to turn, they're just negative. And so anything that they can find, they're going to throw it out there and give their spin on it like they're experts. And it's just, it's chaos, really. Just an easy way to put it.
You talked about there's got to be a winner, there's got to be a loser. One of the things I really liked in the book, though, is I think you do a great job of threading the needle between acknowledging that without sort of what I've seen in culture today, almost celebrating losing, like sort of everybody gets a trophy kind of culture. And I thought you did a really good job of differentiating between the two, acknowledging the effort while still recognizing that there's a winner and a loser. How much do you see that kind of just, again, continuing to be pervasive in our sports world now?
In the sports world now, I'm involved now with, I'm coaching a 13 youth team, and that is I get to see the little league parents and all that stuff, but it's, another thing I thought about was, I don't know if you've ever seen Jeff Dunham.
Mm-hmm.
And he does when he has Earl on, and Earl's the text guy, and he talks about all the trophies that he has in the room, and Jeff goes, "Oh yeah, what are they for? Participation." And yeah, but that's the way society is now. That it's participation trophies. When everybody is super and they do a great job, and it's all positive, even though the kid is not very good, it's all, yeah, you did a great job. What for me, what that does is it doesn't form a basis for working to get better. Mm-hmm. Because I did good. Mom and dad said I did good, even though the kid sucked. I did good. So he's not working harder to get better, and therefore things get stymied, and kids don't grow. And then you get the coach that tries to point out the fact that, I've always said, I will tell you the truth. I will, if you do well, I'll tell you do well. If you sucked, I'm gonna tell you sucked. And here's why: just because you got to work at it, you got to work at what you do wrong in order to get better. But then you get in trouble for doing that now. Mm-hmm. That's what's bothersome, is the fact that you get in trouble for telling the truth.
Yeah, it's something that I find a hard time as I'm a former non-commissioned officer before all this, and the whole idea of that concept, I just don't understand it when it comes to training young men, which I want to get to now. You and I are former colleagues. I'm still close to a lot of your former players. I think when I hear people talk about you as their coach and their mentor, the phrase they come up with is run through a brick wall. I'm thinking about Alex Canada, guys like that. How much of those guys are your legacy now going forward, now that you've sort of at least now have a different perception of sort of what was defined by one pitch in 1986.
That was the greatest, one of the greatest moments in my life was there was a get together of all my former players, and there must have been 40 to 50 former players there, and telling stories back from, I mean, when I first started back in 96 and 97 all the way up to 2018. And to see the growth and see what those young men have become. I mean, they're doctors, they're lawyers, they're and the appreciation that they showed, that the stuff. I mean, I was brutal on some of them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, brutal on some of them because I needed to get the best out of them, and for them to come back and say thank you, it was because of all the crap that they went through in high school that allowed them and gave them the abilities to do the things that they are doing now. I mean, freaking goosebumps on my arms right now just thinking about it, because it was so powerful and so gratifying to see the results of the work, because you don't see it while it's going on, and they don't see it while it's going on. But 10 years afterwards, it's an appreciation that you never think could happen. And it was like being able to be at my own funeral. That's
wow.
How cool it was. I mean, it's like I was dead, but I got to hear the things that meant the most to the people that mean the most.
I love that. I'm getting goosebumps too. You wrote this book, and again, you're honest about all of it. You're honest about the alcoholism and the sort of the way things kind of stuck with you. And I read the book 3 times in preparation for the interview. I'm pretty open about the fact that, again, former NCO with PTSD stuff from deployments, I took a lot from the book as far as dealing with my own stuff. How much of it is that part of it at all in your motivation to understand that people can now learn from what you went through and maybe avoid some of those pitfalls themselves?
That was the biggest motivation for the book. That was the motivation, because the way that it helped me get through it, the way that just the feelings that I felt after writing the book. So this could really help somebody. My wife was saying the same thing. It's not a baseball book.
Mm-hmm.
It's built around baseball, but it's more of a life book that will help people. I mean, our first thought is, if it helps one person, then it's done its job. I mean, if it only sells one copy and it helps that one person, that it's done its job. That's all I care about, is the fact that it could possibly help and affect at least one person's life.
And I think it has, and I think it'll continue to do so. Just a couple other sort of random stuff before we go. Longhorn graduate, national championship. The Longhorn community just lost Coach Gus. Any sort of thoughts about what your time was like with him? Because he sounds like you might have learned a little coaching from his style.
I did a lot of coaching from his style. And the thing about it, it's like I said, while you're going through it, like I said, the kids that from my funeral, it was the same thing with his, because when I was at Texas, I did not like him. He was not your friend. And that's what I told my players. I'm not your friend. I am your coach. I didn't realize it at the time, but after you leave and come back as a pro, it's like, it's a completely different person that you get to see on the field. The first year back for like the alumni game, it's like, I don't know who this guy is. And he's smiling and he's talking to you, and the whole relationship changed when we came back from pro ball or after you graduate. He's a different person, and you come to respect, like, man, that is really cool how that is while you're there, he's not your friend, but when you come back, he respects you, because you never feel that while you're there, but then after it's over with, he goes, the thoughts that run through your mind are, man, I really appreciate what he did for me. And it's just nothing but it was an appreciation. And the University of Texas lost a great man in Coach Gus, and it was what they did there. That ceremony was phenomenal, and it was good to see a lot of people that I haven't seen in a long time.
Okay, last two questions. A little bit silly, I guess, but what's the more realistic sort of minor league baseball movie? Is it Bull Durham or Summer Catch? And please tell me it's whatever. I'm not going to lead you.
I'm a big Bull Durham fan.
Okay.
Because it really is a lot like that. It was back when I played. It was. I don't know what it's like now. My son went through it from 2014 to 19 or 20. I don't know what the minor league system is now, but what they portrayed in Bull Durham, that was because the fields we played on sucked. The bleachers sucked. The hotels sucked. They didn't have sky boxes and the way things are now, like in the minor leagues. It was a lot different back then.
Well, I'm glad that at least they're figuring out a way to get the guys paid. I guess last question then, the role of baseball in your life. I know you're still coaching. Are you watching Major League Baseball? Do you have opinions on Manfred's new rules from ghost runners to larger bases? Where does it fit for you now?
I don't watch Major League Baseball anymore. I'm disgusted with the strikeouts and the launch angle and hitting home runs, and the game is not played the way that I grew up playing it. Sacrifice bunts, stealing, those don't happen anymore. I mean, even in the ghost runner, all that crap with guys on second base, they don't sacrifice the guy over. They're leaving the guys up there to hit, and they're striking out. And I just don't like the way the game is played. I love watching college baseball because I think that's more of a natural way of doing it. And the new rules it's killing the game. I don't like that. I just don't. I watched the playoffs, and it's just because my Stros were in it. But I don't watch a lot of Major League Baseball just because it's not the game that I played.
It's definitely I'm still Mr. Bunt guy on my sort of baseball media Twitter groups, and I get yelled at all the time, but that's the I don't know, it's real baseball. Coach, thanks so much for jumping on. He is Coach Calvin Schiraldi. The book is The Arena. I'm gonna have the link in the description of this episode so that way people can buy their copy. And thanks for jumping on Let's Get To.
Thanks for having me. Appreciate it.